This is Amy Chan from CakeDecoratingSchool.com, and if you like cake decorating, you're in the right place. Welcome to our flower series. In this video, we'll be piping buttercream stock blossoms. It's broken down into steps so you can skip ahead, rewind, and rewatch as desired. Let's get started by making the colors for our stock blossoms. I've got some buttercream in my bowl. I'm using all American style buttercream, and I'm going to be making two colors. We're going to use the following liquid gel colors to create those shades: violet, neon bright pink, royal blue, and finally some lemon yellow. To start with, I'm going to make the purple I'm going to use for my petals. So I'm going to start with just a drop of purple. If it'll behave and come out. Come on, purple. There we go. And then I want just a little half drop of pink. So I'm going to squeeze it and just dab that against the surface because I don't want as much pink as purple, but I want this to be like a nice shade, nice hue that's not kind of pastel in value, a little more like a medium tone. So I want to get some actual good color in there, and I want more than specks. I don't want it to be straight purple, so I just wanted to get a little of that pink in there just to make it a little bit of a warmer shade. We added something like the royal blue, it would take us more periwinkle, and I think that's going to be a nice color for us. Our next color is going to be just a tiny bit of green for our centers. So I just have a little dab of that buttercream. I've got a little of my lemon yellow, my royal blue, and a tiny bit of my pink out on my lid, just because I want to make a nice shade of green, but I don't want it to be too bright, too intense, too true. So I'm just going to add a tiny bit of that pink just to kind of dull it out, just a touch. This should give us kind of a mossy shade. But if we don't quite hit the mark at first, can always add just a little more of that pink. You can see just a little touch of pink. It's like adding red. Just kind of brings it towards more of a neutral shade, a little brown in there. I'm just going to keep going with that until I like where this color lands. I want it to have a nice kind of mossy, earthy vibe. I think we're almost there. Just a little more red. Sorry, a little more of my pink and a little more of my blue. I think that's going to be it. It's going to be in the center of our blossoms and kind of tucked away and hidden. I don't want it to be too bright, but I do want it to stand out against our purple. So on a nice shade of green. I think that's going to be lovely. You can see how it's got a nice kind of mossy vibe to it. It's not too intense or bright. It's a nice medium tone, just like our purple, but it should read well against that purple. For this flower, we are going to use two 12-inch disposable decorating bags. They're both fitted directly with the tip. For the green, we're going to use a number 6. And for the purple, we'll be using a number 104. Now, let's review the techniques that we're going to use to make our stock flower. The first one is really easy. We're going to be making dots. These are going to form the centers that'll kind of be hidden in the depths, nestled in between a whole bunch of petals. And we want to do our dot, but we want to do it just a little different than we normally would. Normally, when we're making dots, we want to hold the tip up above the surface to really let that frosting balloon out. For our stock flower, we're going to go a little closer than normal And we're going to make a nice flat disc. So we want it to be just a little wider and a little flatter than it normally would. So we're looking to make a nice flat round surface to then connect our flowers to, versus the normal one where we would be up and really letting it kind of balloon out and be nice and puffy. So you can kind of see the difference there. If I hold it to the side, we're looking for a nice flat disc. So we want to do what normally would be a no-no and hold that tip close to the surface so we get a nice thin spread on that dot. For the petals, we're using our number 104. We're going to make some diamonds and some rounds. The rounds are a lot like teardrops, just shorter, so they're more circular and less teardrop shaped. The diamonds are like the big ones that we've done with some of our other flowers, except we're going to go really tiny here. So basically just using the opening of the tip as a guide for the size of the sides. So you really just want to start, we want to squeeze, pull up, down the other side and back. So you can see it makes a nice diamond shaped petal. It's got that little point, and really the sides are about the same length, maybe a little shorter as the opening of the tip. So we really don't need to move it at all. We're just going to start squeezing and then pull up to a point, back down the other one, and back to meet up at the beginning. For the round ones, we just want to kind of fix the fat end in the center, and then we're going to curve or spin so we get a nice rounded shape to the top edge of those petals. They of course won't be completely circular. We're just looking for a nice small petal with a nice rounded shape to the top. The main thing that we're going to do with these petals that's going to be a little different in some cases is some of them are going to be laying flat against the surface like these are, and some of them we're going to start rocking the opening of the tip up. So some of them will pipe almost at a 45-degree angle, and some of them will pipe upright, and that's going to be especially relevant for our little round petals. And finally, we're going to do some little support fans. And these are going to be small just because the petals we're piping are small. But we just want to pipe some nice little kind of fan-shaped wedges, little chunks, little blocks of frosting, whatever you want to call them. And they're essentially going to act as spacers, because then when we pipe a petal on top of those, it'll be supported, so it'll stay up without melting in or flopping over, but it'll give it some space between the layers of petals and make the flowers look a little more open. It's now time to review how we're going to take our techniques, put them together, and build our stock blossom. The first thing we're going to do is grab our bag of green, number 6 tip. We're going to pipe a low flat dot in the center of our flower nail. That's going to give us something to attach and join all of our petals together, and we'll end up with a tiny bit of a void, so a little bit of that green kind of peeking through the top to give it the look of our stock blossoms. Next, we're going to grab our bag of purple that has our 104 tip on it, and we're going to do 5 of those diamond-shaped petals, about equidistant all the way around that dot. The ends of them are going to be connecting to it. It's fine if there's spaces between the petals. That's actually going to work in your favor. So don't worry about so much joining all the petals together and doing them perfectly next to each other. It's fine and actually desirable if there's a little space in between those petals on that first set. The next thing we're going to do, still with our 104, we're going to use this one to the end, is we're going to pipe 3 little short support fans on 3 of those petals. So just pick 3 of them. Typically I'll do 2 that are next to each other, skip 1, and then do 1 across of it. So if you think about it like head, arms, and feet, I'll do 1 on the head, skip the arms, and do it on the feet, right? So we just don't want it on every single one. The next thing we're going to do is a second layer of petals. So either on top of the petal itself, in the case of my little arms where I'm missing my support fan, or on top of the support fan, I'm going to pipe another set of those diamond-shaped petals. These ones will be at a slight angle, right? And we're going to do them just a little bit offset. So we don't want to do it directly on top of the one we did before. We just want to move our tip over just a tiny bit so it's kind of a little offset from it. And this is where we'll start joining all those petals together because we'll have layers on top of layers and eventually it'll all connect. So we'll make sure we do them slightly offset. 3 of them are going to be on top of the support fans and 3 of them are going to be directly on top of the petals. Now we're going to do 3 anywhere we can fit them in, but we're going to make sure we turn the angle of the opening of the tip so it's a nice 45-degree angle. And you'll notice things are going to be starting to get kind of tight in there. We'll be starting to not have some space, so we'll just pick good spots to put them in where we have enough room. And finally, we'll finish off with those little round petals. So you might have been wondering, where do those come in? Because so far, all we've done are little diamond shapes. We're going to turn it so that the opening of the tip is facing straight up, and we'll do 2 little round petals, maybe a third one if we can, if there's extra room, just to finish off and fill in that center. And that's going to give us the look of some of the petals being straight up and down, some of them kind of 45-degree angle, some of them closer to laying flat and some all the way laying flat. And it's going to make it look like we have this beautiful, frilly, delicate blossom that's gently kind of folding open. And we have that tiny pop of green just in the center that's recessed and kind of deep down in there. And that's what's going to give us the look of a stalk blossom. Now these actually come on really nice little stalks. And typically there's a whole bunch of them together. So this is a great way to do a nice little arrangement on the top of the cake. If you don't know what to do, they're relatively easy. They have a lot of petals, so they look much more complicated than they are. Now that we've talked about how we're going to make them, let's pull out our flower nail and give it a practice. I've got my bag of green. It's got my number 6 tip on it, and we're going to pipe our dots. So you just want to remember to go closer to the surface than we normally would, so we get a nice flat dot in the center. So you can see, not a lot of height on it. We've got our dot on there, so I've grabbed my bag of purple with my 104, and I'm going to set myself up to pipe my first 5 diamond-shaped petals. And we want to do nice, small motions, so we get nice, small petals. So think about it like head, arms, and legs, and they don't all have to be perfect. We just want them on there relatively the same size, all kind of joining together, and it can get messy in the center. So I've got my bag in my kind of lay flat position. It's off somewhere between 2:30 and 3 o'clock, the back end of the bag. And I just want to draw those little diamonds on there. You can see I'm leaving a little bit of a space in between each petal. And the last one, you might have more room, you might have a little less, whatever it happens to be is fine. We're really not going to see this bottom layer at all, so if it ends up being a little messy or a little awkward, don't worry about it. Now we're going to do our little support fans. So just little block shapes right there. Pick 3 of your petals. I have a tendency to do the head and legs and kind of skip my arms if I'm holding it like this orientation. So head, arms, legs. Next, we're going to pipe our second row of those diamond petals. So since I have those little support wedges, fans on some of them, I'm just going to need to pull the outside edge of that tip up so that I can pipe right on top of those. So I'm not going to start exactly where I did before, just a little bit over. So these petals will be a little bit offset. And I'm going to do the same thing right here. On my other petals as well. And you can see this kind of quickly fills in. And we lose some of that green. And if you need to, at the end, rock the back end of your bag up so you don't run into your first set of petals. But you can see now this flower, even viewed from the top, it has some depth. We're starting to kind of make a little cavern where that green is kind of sunk in. And from the side, you get the appearance that there's space between those petals. You have some depth there, and those little gaps, and even the little ruffles from the support fans look like other petals that are hidden underneath. we're going to take it and instead of just angling up a little bit, we're going to go straight up, kind of like 45 degrees there, and we're going to put on some more of our little petals. So just probably like 2 or 3 of our diamond shaped ones at this angle. Anywhere they work in is fine, right? We just want to kind of, let's pick a good spot. Having trouble deciding. Sometimes that's the worst part, is picking a spot for them. So just kind of in between some of the petals, and we're making sure we leave that gap there. It's time to put on some of our upright round ones, and for these I usually end up going in between, just a few. And if I can, I just want to make sure I leave a little opening for my green, but if you end up covering it up, that's fine too. So there we have a beautiful stalk blossom. If you enjoyed this flower and you'd like to pipe some others, try checking out our video on basic roses. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like more about the cake decorating materials and equipment we use, or just some inspirational videos about cake decorating itself, you can follow us on Insta or YouTube at Cake Decorating School. If you'd like to know more about yearly membership and what it entails, you can go to www.cakedecoratingschool.com for more information. And if you're interested in these products, you can check the links in the description.